Hey guys, I just wanted to go over some techniques on some of the ways that I achieved this. I'm not going to do a whole tutorial step by step on how to achieve the final result, but I will go over the techniques that I used to get to that end point. First things first is most of the heavy work is done using a scatter system, and it's rendering instances of just a handful of buildings. You can do it in Blender. There's different ways of using instance, and I'm sure there's other tutorials on how to achieve this. It's nothing too crazy. So in this case, I use Octane and Octane Scatter, and I have quite a few. Let's see, I have about 6,000 buildings being instanced onto this plane around our hero subject here. All I did was just kind of go through the seeds and to see what works with the composition, and you can, it's all procedurally generated, so it's, you don't have to do crazy setup. Just set the distribution to surface and onto a plane or whatever you want. You can do a plane or a landscape, whatever you're doing in your scene, but in this case I do have a scene, and there's lights on the buildings alone, and those kind of give some nice look, but it's still very dark. So what we're going to do is ways of creatively lighting your scene here. Let's see if I can go back to, yeah, I think that's how I had it before. Okay. So what I did was, on this plane I have an image texture similar to my distribution on the scatter, but I can link this texture pack in the description, because you could use this for all kinds of stuff. It's a really good texture pack. Let's see here. Okay, so this emission is just pretty much the image texture going into a gradient that I have clipped pretty high, going from black. The black, it's mostly black, and then if I weren't to have this, it would be pretty blown out. So I'm just isolating where I want the lights to be. And you can even do, let's see here, you can even do like an octane noise. Let's see if I can find it. I can never find it. Okay. So this is what the noise would look like, and then play with the values if you want more detail in there. And then whenever you have the buildings, it'll light up different parts, and it's kind of a lazy man's way of randomly lighting up a scene like this. This is just something that I like doing, because it's a lot easier than setting up lights. You can add lights to be more exact, but it's not what I want to do. Alright, so now we're back here. Alright, so as you can see, it's now lighting underneath it. I do have a slight HDRI. Yeah, it's just a early morning HDRI with a really, really low power, just to get a little bit of ambient light. And you can see it's very subtle. It's, even if you turn it off, it's it's almost non-noticeable, but little things like that add up. Let's see, what else do I got here? Pretty much once you get to this point, I like to set up my render passes. I don't know, I can't remember how to do it in Blender exactly, but I know in Octane, you can get into here under Octane Render in your render settings, and then go into info passes. And some passes that I like to work with are the Z depth, ambient occlusion. There's quite a bit else, but let's take a look at the Z depth first. So this is going to be where what's going to affect our fog and compositing effects once we take this into After Effects. So right here, the Z-depth max kind of sets the max point at where the light is. And so you want to make sure you get a nice gradient from, you know, gray to white, but you don't want the white to be clipping here. You don't want to lose any of that information. You want to try and get as much information as possible. So, you know, right around here, I can notice it starts to fall off and you don't see much difference, but this will be good to work with. And for ambient occlusion, it's good to have, you can make sure extra punchy shadows and, you know, all sorts of stuff, but I like to render these out. I think this sequence, all it is it's just, yeah, it's just a camera. It's just a camera panning here. Now, I'm going to take this into After Effects and then we'll talk about some compositing techniques. Okay, so now we took our sequence into After Effects. This is just the denoised main pass. Now, when we're working with our Z-pass filters, like the thing to consider is what you want to do with them. So here, I know I'm going to want to add a bunch of fog. So what I have is let's see what's in this one. Let's turn this off and just restart everything. Okay, so I have this gradient from green to dark, and nothing too crazy here. And now what I have is make sure to have the Z-pass on top of that. And so then what you do is, like, I know for this one I set it to add, and then for the track matte, which to get to the track matte, I think you have to, yeah, hit this little section here with the circle and the square. This will give you the option for the track matte. And I set Luma matte to our Z pass, which is the one above it. And so what that does is if I play here with, if I add a levels to the Z pass on that is being affected by, you can set where you want the fog. If you want the fog to be further back, or if you want it to be way up front, you can even clamp it down to where you want it affecting just in front of these buildings, or if you want it more in the back here, not affecting the front. So this is really powerful for compositing, especially if you just layer a bunch of them, and you can see how many different layers I have here. So I have kind of greenish color here. I added a blue one that's just in the back there, you can see. Let's see, I have another blue one, or more purple, but this is on this side, and you know, so it all adds up. It's same thing. You have Z pass, you have to Luma matte to the Z pass, and then adjust the levels on the Z pass layer, and to get it to where you want it. Let's see, another one. This one's up front, and then this is where you can start to add motion, like different fog, stock footage and stuff. So here, let's set this to no track max. That way you can see it. Now this one is just, you can see it's fog that goes, it's got a black background, so we'll be able to composite it easily. But adding realistic footage to your CG is what really sells it even more. These little things add together and, you know, you got something pretty cool. So here, same thing, linear dodge, and then I have it set to a Z pass, and the Z pass I have it set to a certain point. So whenever we go, yeah, just very subtle, and you wanna layer. You can see it's not really changing too much, but when it's all added together, it looks good. Okay, so I have all of this. Another thing that I did actually was I took the scene from this. I added, so I took the camera, and then what I'm going to do actually is show you what I did with clouds. So the clouds, all I had was a VDB volume with a bunch of different instances, and what that is since I took the camera from our original footage, I don't have to worry about tracking or anything this other stuff in, and I have control on where the clouds are going to sit within the space, and this is just rendered out separately and added to this. So let's see, here is no track mat. I think I had this set. Let's see here. So this one we'll be able to see better. Yeah, so you can see here, this is some VDB clouds that I had rendered out separately using the same camera motions as before. Set this to quarter just so it'll load faster. Okay, so you can see these clouds here moving within the 3D space, kind of in front of the camera. You get a lot of depth. And there's a couple things that I did with this cloud. So the first thing that I did was I set one pass to multiply, just because I know in real life, whenever you're looking at a city down through the clouds, it tends to kind of be a little bit darker. Just in a spot, it's not going to completely light up, just because the clouds tend to be denser. And then on top of that, I just another luminosity mode for this pass, and same thing, lumamat to the Z depth, just so that way we can blend it within our scene. Nothing crazy. It's just, layer, 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 layer until you get to this point. The only other thing was just an adjustment map, just to get the final look that I wanted. I think all I did was curves adjustment, some hue and saturation adjustment, some slight level adjustment, just because I want the faded Blade Runner film look. Clip the black and set the output to a little bit higher. And then a little bit of noise, and you can even add some like film grain and stuff, different sort of overlay, but that's pretty much it. Nothing crazy, nothing too crazy. If you have any other questions, feel free to message me. Yeah, I think that's it. Sorry for the delay on this. It's hard to do this sort of stuff. But hopefully you learned a couple things on the process behind this, and can hopefully make your own Blade Runner city.